Well, I gotta say, man, I honestly saw arguably the best heavyweight title fight that I've ever seen in my whole life. I thought this fight was, oh my God. I mean, I was just speechless at the end of this fight. I thought this fight was historic. When you talk about the passing of the torch, this was definitely that. I mean, it couldn't have been scripted any better. And before the fight, I picked Anthony Joshua, and I picked him by sixth round stoppage. I thought this fight was going to end earlier than it did, and it almost did. It almost did in that fifth round. As everyone saw yesterday, Anthony Joshua had Wladimir Klitschko in serious trouble in that fifth round. And he himself, I believe, as Max Kellerman said, and as the Showtime broadcast team said, I think that he believed that he did have Wladimir Klitschko out. I think he was excited. He was celebrating a little bit too soon. And I think he was surprised that Wladimir Klitschko was able to regroup. I don't think he was prepared to have to, go right back at Wladimir Klitschko and take him out of there. Because when he got up, he really seemed a little surprised, number one, when Wladimir got up. And number two, I thought that, he came in and he smothered his shots. He was headhunting a little bit, and he really didn't step back and give himself enough space to not only punch, but to see the openings and create the openings. I think he just jumped on him and just, threw all caution into the wind. And Wladimir Klitschko was able to hold him because he got too close, number one. And number two, he was throwing headshots. So Klitschko, when he couldn't grab him, he would just put the earmuffs on. He was blocking a lot of the shots that were just going right to the head. He wasn't really, trying to slip in those body shots or those 45-degree angle uppercut type shots that have been so effective for him in his career. Now, in the sixth round, obviously, we saw how Wladimir Klitschko was able to land that sneaky right hand that he camouflages so well with that educated jab of his. And he definitely set it up perfectly. And he hit Anthony Joshua on the temple. And I believe if that punch landed a little bit lower, and down in the chin area, then it could be quite possible that Anthony Joshua would not have been able to get up from that shot. It was that hard of a right hand. But credit to Anthony Joshua. I mean, he regrouped just like he did in the Dillian White fight. And I looked back to that Dillian White fight when people would say, hey, he's never really been hit with a shot, that he's never been hurt and have to come back from adversity. And I think in that fight, he was a lot more hurt than people really believe. And I think that he's not given the credit for coming back and regaining his composure in that fight and being able to stop Dillian White after being so severely hurt. And in a fight where I think that if any other heavyweight got hit with that shot, I think 9 out of 10 heavyweights probably would have not been able to continue. And Anthony Joshua showed, the character, and he showed the heart of a champion in that fight, and he showed the ability to get a second win and regroup. And his stamina came through for him, so he proved he had some stamina in that fight. Now, obviously, Wladimir Klitschko, definitely a much tougher task than Dillian White. But I want to go back to something that Richard Dwyer said in his video that he made today about, Wladimir Klitschko being concerned about Anthony Joshua's power. And that's why he didn't go in for the kill, because he was concerned that maybe, he would get hit with something, counter shot, similar to the shot that he got hit with in the fifth round. And the fight would get turned back in Anthony Joshua's favor. But, let's not forget, and this has been mentioned several times before, that, Wladimir Klitschko, after being stopped, 3 times in his career, with the latest stoppage being against Lamont Brewster, outside of this fight yesterday, we've seen him change his style. We've seen him be more of a safety-first fighter. We've seen his punch output go down significantly after that fight. I mean, he just totally changed up his style. He's a safety-first fighter, and he would throw a lot less punches. He wouldn't put 2 or 3 shots together. He wouldn't throw a lot of combinations. He would basically throw 1-2s, and he would mix in a left hook every now and then. but he would throw the left hook either off a jab or he would throw it in a lead fashion after he had his opponent hurt. So it wasn't like he'd be putting shots together because, again, he did not want to open himself up for counters. So he's never been that guy, at least for the last 10 years, where he would really go at somebody, really finish somebody, be that killer instinct type guy. He would still always proceed with caution, even when he had a guy hurt. So he was never that type of guy that would have that Mike Tyson-esque type killer instinct, or even that killer instinct that Anthony Joshua showed in the 11th round. So let's look at some of the adjustments, and let's look at how Anthony Joshua, basically developed right before our very eyes as this fight was going on. Because if you noticed, he was able to get a second wind. He was able to settle himself down, and he was actually, gauging the right hand a little bit better, and he was catching the right hand with his left glove, and he was catching and shooting like I said he does, or like I said he would do in this fight, because he's a really good counter puncher. And I also mentioned, in my pre-fight breakdown that, he's not a guy that uses a lot of head movement. He's not a guy that's really slick with upper body movement, but he catches shots, he blocks shots, and he counters. He catches and shoots very well. And I think as this fight wore on, he started timing that right hand. He started catching, and then he would counter, he would catch it and then counter with his own right hand. So he was catching and shooting. And then Wladimir Klitschko tried to slip that left hook in there. So he would, maybe throw a right hand and then try to set up that left hook after it. And as the fight wore on, I thought Anthony Joshua was starting to time that punch as well. He was getting up underneath it. And another adjustment that Anthony Joshua made is he was starting to really make a commitment to the body as this fight wore on, and particularly in the championship rounds from the 8th round on. He started dropping that right hand to the body. He started throwing the jab and then ducking down, and then throwing that right hand to the body. And then he started, putting those body shots together a little bit. And as Max Kellerman and the HBO broadcast team alluded to, he was starting to put welts on Wladimir Klitschko's body. So the big thing, Anthony Joshua, as I said before this fight, is his ability to really just throw so many different punches and variations of punches and mix those shots up and put them together so well. It's really hard to, gauge this guy because he has such a wide array of punches that he throws, and he can hurt you with any of them. So he throws those, like I said, those 45-degree angles. He'll throw that jab, and sometimes he'll throw it as a power jab. Sometimes he'll just throw it as a diversion. And he really knows how to set shots up well, and he really varies them up. So he's not predictable offensively. He's constantly giving you different looks offensively. And again, he still has a lot of improvement, to make defensively. But as the fight wore on, we saw him tightening up defensively and making adjustments defensively, which enabled him to nullify a lot of what Wladimir Klitschko has done. So going back to the whole stamina thing and going back to the whole Dwyer thing, as I said, because Wladimir Klitschko over the last 10 years has changed his style, and he has become safety first, because, once that adrenaline flows, fighters are human beings. We tend to think of them as being, supermen, but deep down inside, the psychological makeup of a fighter is a lot similar to some degree as a human being, because when you're put in that situation where your adrenaline's flowing, and you're in a fight or flight type situation, you see a lot of fighters, like they sometimes freeze up, or they shut down, or they go into defensive shells. So we saw an instance where Wladimir Klitschko was put into a fight or flight, and we saw Anthony Joshua put into a fight or flight. Now, Wladimir Klitschko, this is no knock on him, but going back to that whole thing with those 3 knockout losses and the Lamont Brewster situation, he has always really, when he's hurt, his first instinct is to freeze the action, to regroup, okay? And after that, he tends to become a lot more defensive. He becomes a lot more economical with the punches. And on, because he was hurt badly, you know, and after that instance, I don't think it was just in this fight. I just think this was basically something that's been building up over his career, is he remembers in those knockout losses not only that he was hurt, but he was also fatigued. So people questioned, you know, Joshua's stamina in this fight, but I always questioned Wladimir Klitschko's stamina. And the adjustment he made throughout his career was obviously to fight at a slower pace. So I didn't think all of a sudden in this fight he was going to fight a fast-paced fight, whereas I've seen Anthony Joshua fight a fast-paced fight, or at least a moderately paced fight. He's never been a guy to really, really go economical with his offense, because as I said many times, his offense is his defense. And if he changes that, then obviously it's going to really affect his style. It's going to really not make him as effective as he is. So offensively, I think he is a Mike Tyson. I don't think defensively he is a Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson obviously had that head movement, and he would have to employ that style because of his physical limitations. He had to get low and bob and weave the way he did to enable himself to get inside, whereas Anthony Joshua is a big guy, so he can, you know, set up that offense a little bit differently than Mike Tyson can, because of his length and his, you know, it's just his height, and the punch is going to be delivered from different you know, positions and different angles, obviously because of the size. So in that regard, he has a lot more leeway than Mike Tyson did. So he can get away with some of the things that Mike Tyson could not get away with. But again, this guy is 27 years old. Okay, we saw him get better in this fight. We saw him improve upon, you know, the mistakes he made early on, and later in the fight, he was correcting them, and that's what enabled him to be able to do what he did. And you know, when he got inside as the fight went on, another thing that I saw him do was he would give Wladimir Klitschko a side profile. He would twist this way and kind of camouflage that right hand a little bit. And not only that, by giving Klitschko that side profile, it's hard to grab a guy when he's giving you that side profile. It's easy to grab a guy when he squares up, because you can wrap around both of his shoulders. Now, again, Anthony Joshua's not a guy who's going to get low. He's not a guy who's going to be a compact guy, because he's 6'6", and most guys who are 6'6" don't really, you know, fight out of a bob and weave type style, or they're not going to dip and duck like a 5'8" or a 5'9" welterweight would. But they can still, you know, change up their body positioning. They can give different looks. They could, you know, give you that side profile. They could step around. They could, you know, pivot away. They could slide back. They can throw feints. And, you know, that uppercut that Anthony Joshua threw and landed with such accuracy, power, and precision, I don't think any heavyweight in the world today could have thrown that punch with such efficiency and with such perfection, because again, you know, the reason why he was able to do that was because he gave that side profile, and the punch was camouflaged, and Wladimir Klitschko did not see it coming. And these are the types of punches that I've seen early on in his career Anthony Joshua land, and that's what makes him so dangerous. Whereas with the Deontay Wilder, you know, he's basically a right-hand puncher. His jab is okay, but his left hook is pretty much non-existent, and his body punching and uppercut really isn't there. It's not nowhere near on the level of Anthony Joshua. And a lot of times we've seen, you know, Deontay Wilder hurt guys, and because of the level of opposition he's fought, he's been able to get away with really getting wild, leaning forward, throwing those windmill type punches. Whereas Anthony Joshua, even when he fought that lower level opposition, he still set the shots up and threw them with better technique, with better balance, and better coordination. So offensively, I think that Anthony Joshua is leaps and bounds ahead of Deontay Wilder, and I think he's much more dangerous with either hand than Deontay Wilder is. And I think he's just a much more prolific offensive fighter. He's a guy that mixes shots up, goes to the body, throws those 45s, throws those uppercuts, and you know, he sets up combinations and he throws them in, you know, various sequences, where Deontay Wilder tends to be that 1-2 type puncher. A little better with his jab, you know, throwing that in you know, at different variations, different timing. You know, he switched up the timing and rhythm of his jab a little bit, but for the most part, he still likes to pull back and really load up with that right hand. And I think last couple of fights, I thought that early on, the fighters were picking up on it, and they were actually in the Gerald Washington fight. I think, he was losing that fight until he got tagged. Deontay Wilder was, but he just landed that one shot. Now, I don't think as the opposition gets better, as he starts fighting better guys, he's going to be able to bail him out. He's going to be able to bail him out. Hearn was able to last the distance after getting hit with that right hand. But again, he just did not have offensive ability to really do anything to keep Deontay Wilder off him. Whereas Anthony Joshua, he can hurt guys with jabs. He can hurt guys with any punch he throws. And now that even after getting hit with hellacious shots and being able to come back from them, look at this. Is right hand that much powerful? Even is it more powerful than Wladimir Klitschko's right hand? I think the power is very comparable. So if Anthony Joshua can take his right hand, and keep in mind, people sit there and say they try to minimize Wladimir Klitschko as just being a 1-2 puncher. And I know earlier in the video I said that major offense. He still throws feints, still changes up the rhythm, still camouflages the punch as well, hides the punch as well. He throws a sneaky right hand, and he's been able to really land that punch at will against anybody. So, I don't think Deontay Wilder has that same type of savviness about his offense like Wladimir Klitschko does. I think Wladimir Klitschko, with his experience, with his craftiness, just his type of pedigree, I don't think that Deontay Wilder is on the same level as Wladimir Klitschko. So if Anthony Joshua is able to deal with the power of that right hand, he's able to deal with the real highly skilled technical aspect of Wladimir Klitschko's boxing ability, I think he can be able to deal with Deontay Wilder's. Now, the big question mark here is Tyson Fury. As you guys know, I've been high on Tyson Fury for a long time, and I've always said that Tyson Fury is extremely coordinated. He's extremely talented, and he's another guy who may not be the biggest puncher in the world, but he's another guy. Throw those feints, really make those subtle moves, change up the look a little bit, and he has a really good way of opening up his offense. And he's a very versatile fighter. He's a guy who moves his head very well. He's a guy that gauges distance very well. And given his length, that can really shorten up shots on the inside, throw sneaky uppercuts. He can go southpaw. And this guy is really, really tricky as a fighter. And I think that Tyson Fury that beat Wladimir Klitschko for the title, particular time, I didn't think anyone could beat him. But ever since he won that title, it reminds me of the Mike Tyson situation. When Mike Tyson, young and early in his career, he actually got worse after winning the title. So that old adage of winning the title, it actually worked in reverse for Mike Tyson. To think that possibly that may be the case with Tyson Fury. I'm going to believe that because ever since he won that title, the burden of being champion, I don't think he was able to deal with that. That's when, he started and there's going to be issues for him. And there's going to be issues for him moving forward. And I don't think that if he can't put it together, I don't think that he's going to be a threat to Anthony Joshua. Because if he can't mentally get himself back together and, he can't type of help psychologically, then I don't think Anthony Joshua is going to have any threats in the heavyweight division, to be honest with you. I think he's going to rule on, because Tyson Fury, I think, would give Anthony Joshua fits right now. But the big question is, as I said, will we ever get that version of Tyson Fury back? Or get focused again? Because before he won the title, no one really thought he could win that fight. So there was no pressure on him. He was the huge underdog. And, expected him to win. And so there was really no pressure on him to perform, because anything he did, he was going to be an overachiever in that fight, because he was given no chance. But now, when he won the title after beating Vladimir Klitschko, he was the man. So that's where the pressure comes. Now you have to perform. Now you have to prove that, hey, you know what, that wasn't a fluke. So that's what I'm just, thinking, was that basically the undoing for him? Was that that was at the point where he started to unravel and he couldn't deal with that way of being heavyweight champion? Because Anthony Joshua seems to have embraced it. This was a guy, let's really put this in context now. This was a guy who won a heavyweight title in his 16th fight. Now I'm going to open up my notes here because I was writing this down, this in context, what Anthony Joshua has done thus far in his career and how great it really is, because he won a title in his 16th fight. Now let's take a look at Vladimir Klitschko. It took him 36 fights to win a world title. It took Tyson Fury 25 fights. It took Mike Tyson 28 fights. It took Lennox Lewis 23 fights. And it took Deontay Wilder 33 fights. Now, even the great Floyd Mayweather, it took him 18 fights. Mega fight, that happened in his 38th fight. Now, Anthony Joshua, like I said, won a title in 16 fights, and that's very rare for a heavyweight. We've seen, fighters in lower weight classes do that, but I know Mike Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion, but let's not make no mistake, he didn't go to the Olympics like Anthony Joshua did, so that took some time away from Anthony Joshua. So he turned pro younger than Anthony Joshua because of that. But also, it still took him a while. It took him 28 fights to become champion, where it only took, Anthony Joshua roughly 3 years to become heavyweight champion. And it took him 3.5 years to be in his first big mega fight in front of 90,000 people, being shown on, HBO, Showtime, so many other international outlets. Like, he was basically exposed to the whole world. This was like his defining moment. And it all happened in his 19th fight. Let's put that in perspective. Let's really look at how great the accomplishment yesterday. Let's really look at that. He is the man right now. He is poised to be the face of boxing right now after what happened yesterday. And I don't think I'm over exaggerating that at all. I don't think I'm overstating that at all. So this is a guy who's 27 years old, who probably won't even reach his prime until he's 32, because that's generally when most boxers reach their prime, when they're in 31, 32-ish. So as good as he looked yesterday in finishing Vladimir Klitschko, better. Whereas, as I said, Deontay Wilder, ever since winning the title, his level of opposition hasn't improved. It's actually regressed. And I think he's regressed because of his level of opposition. I don't think any of these other guys have shown improvement since they've won the title. Like, I don't think Joseph Parker looks any better. And as soon as Tyson Fury won the title, he went into exile. He started doing crazy things, having some issues. And Anthony Joshua is the only guy like he's going to get better. He's the only guy that looks like he has the biggest upside in the heavyweight division. So the sky is the limit for this guy. Whereas I'm not so sure with these other guys. I don't think there's anyone out there that's really going to set the world on fire. I think that there's some interesting Anthony Joshua out there, but I still think better, he's going to become more dangerous, and he's going to be harder to beat with every fight. So that is, basically my whole prediction here for Anthony Joshua. I think this guy is going to be the face of boxing. I think he's going to surpass Canelo. I think at some point he may even surpass Floyd Mayweather, because it took Floyd Mayweather a long time to get that mega fight with Oscar De La Hoya. Let's say Tyson Fury comes back and they put this fight in front of 90,000 people again. HBO is going to want to televise it. Showtime's going to want to televise it. It's going to be on international pay-per-view. It could be bigger than this Klitschko fight. It probably will be bigger than this Klitschko fight. And then if he beats if he beats Fury, and then he goes on to fight Deontay Wilder, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. Mega fight after mega fight, really out there for him, and I think that heavyweight division exciting again. He breathed new life into this division, man, and I'm just so excited. And I thought he would win yesterday. I didn't think the fight would be as tough as it was, but again, I'm glad it was tough. I'm glad he was able to answer some questions. I'm glad he was able to face adversity again. I'm glad he was forced to dig down deep and get that second win, because again, that just makes him a better fighter. Number one, it makes us more intrigued by watching him. Number one, and number two, we got one of the best heavyweight fights in history yesterday because of that. So if I was right and he blew Wladimir Klitschko out in 6 rounds, then obviously we wouldn't have got that great fight that we got. So, I'm going to talk about this fight more on the podcast tonight, Ringside Reporter podcast at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you tune into that. Make sure you call in. And, I want to hear what you guys think. Tell me if I'm wrong here. If anything I said you disagree with, I'd like to hear your arguments. Again, Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Anthony Joshua is the truth. I used to think Tyson Fury is the truth. Still a huge Tyson Fury fan, but I got question marks right now for Tyson Fury, whereas Anthony Joshua, I think they're pretty much answered. And I think he's going to continue to answer the questions. Not so sure. So until next time, Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon, and make sure you watch that podcast tonight. Take care. Peace.